Hey folks, and welcome to another video from A Plain Truth for You and Well Healed Too. Question, first gratitude to John Levy and Flat Earth versus Martin Liken, coming back and getting back online. They've been contributing great to the whole conversation about revisionist history, Tartarian Empire, the Romanovs, and everything. History is the version of the past events that have been decided to agreed upon. It's all been a lie. My next book, Everything is a Lie, Nothing is True, we're finding out. History is a pack of lies about events that never happened, told by people who weren't there, no doubt. So what I want to get into is these images from 1906 and 2017, how similar they are. Looking with a new set of eyes, I'm seeing the, quote, earthquake of 1906 in San Francisco. Was it really an earthquake? Well, it's pretty interesting with the places of major burn where this area came about, where the fires were in San Francisco. You can see just directly up north, you see the Golden Gate Bridge. That's Crissy Field and the Presidio, where a major part of the burning. And it happens to be the exact same places that the 1915 Great Panama Pacific World Exhibition Fair was held. And it was magnificent, over 75 acres, hundreds of massive structures, 47-story tower crown of jewel lit up at night, rides that were 270 feet in length swinging around all lit up at night, organs just massive sizes that played harmonic frequency healing music. I mean, this was a massive undertaking. And we know the lies have been great. And also we're finding these old maps that California was at one time an island. This is all Jesuit lands that they all founded back in the missions in the 1700s, and so they very easily could change the story. But these over 250 maps from the 1700s show that California was an island. So we're revisiting everything now. And here's a quick video of what I published on my Plain Truth for You channel. And this gentleman did a great effort in describing the directed energy weapons that were available in the 1800s, as early as the 1840s, and goes into detail. He shows articles and proof that this was available way back when, and that these were able to shoot lasers, and technology was quite available. Patents were made, electronic gun, 1904. So this is old technology, folks. It's all old technology. We're relearning history that's been hidden and occulted from us. So was directed energy weapons used in a 1906 earthquake, where you see the tower poles still standing and the trees still standing? Let's take another look. And here we have John Levy's great work here and his good eye at this stuff.
And then in the early 1900s, you have the Great Earthquake that, finishes off a lot of these amazing buildings of what appear to be from a much older era. And even in 1902, the build-out of the city is absolutely amazing. As you can see here, I mean, the architectural and engineering feats for the time are perfect. I mean, absolutely perfect. This was a city at its peak, and we would experience these two catastrophes within 50 years of each other, the fire and the earthquake, that pretty much reduces this city, levels this city, and we're left with neighborhoods that resemble what we see in the recent California fires. Fires that reduce entire areas into simply street, and everything turns to powder, except the trees. And we continuously see this pattern. as you can see in this photo. So 1906, the ruins of San Francisco, Nob Hill in the foreground, from Lawrence captive airship. So really a lot of airship activity going on. And for this time period, you know, this has to be a very long exposure in this balloon to capture this resolution. And I've never seen such an amazing older photograph, but even more so, this reminds me of either Hiroshima or the wildfires in California, or, you know, all over the world. We've seen these strange wildfires all over the world. But now, again, the trees. I mean, this stone or brick building, all of them, in fact, whatever we can see, has been reduced. And yet, the power poles are all intact. The remnants of trees, in fact, there was a little patch of trees here, as you can see. Everything reduced except the vegetation. And this amazing architecture. And as we could see in that last photo by Thomas Edison in the balloon, this city was built out completely and reduced to ruins. And much of this city looks again like Hiroshima or the ruins of Palmyra in Syria. Absolute ruins from a fire and an earthquake. But I don't think so. And I also want you to notice the layout, just the amazing engineering. And anybody who's ever experienced surveying, I mean, you know, the process just to survey, you know, a small piece of land is a job, let alone to lay out an entire city in this fashion. And so how many times have our cities been rebuilt? You know, we see photos, a lot of these old mud flood photos, where they build parking lots and discover, you know, entire buildings. It's as if, you know, a whole civilization existed and was completely buried. And even under here, there could be a whole another city underneath this city. And that's what we're discovering. And discoveries in the Midwest of the United States have recently showed this, even on mainstream news outlets. Entire cities that have been completely buried, and we're walking amongst them right now. But in this case, it has just been leveled and will be rebuilt. And this is within a very short amount of time that we can see. I had no idea, I had no idea that this city had been completely built out, leveled, and rebuilt within a little over 100 years.
So for those that are unaware, back in the early 1900s, Nikola Tesla was said to have found free energy by using the electromagnetic ether to conduct a rod to the ionosphere, to the sky, and grounding it into the earth here at Weidencliff. And we think that was the beginnings of free energy, but now we're learning maybe Tesla was a shill too. He lived on the 33rd floor in New York City and was allowed to live out his life. That's the story anyway. But look at here. Look at these domes. These were electromagnetic energy devices with magnetrons in them. Look at these electricity poles. Look at the horse and buggy days. Look at these buildings, folks. Look at all these towers. These were Wi-Fi towers. These are street poles with notice this structure, this Christmas tree structure. You see it throughout. And what do we see in modern day technology? Look at your transformers where you live in your communities. And this is what they look like. And here you can see again localized power grids. Russians hack into U.S. power grid. And this is in Chicago. And then we also see one here. This is in Los Angeles, I believe, as well. But you can see we have them in Santa Rosa here as well. So they all look the same, and they all were on these cathedrals and churches. So there's no doubt that they had electrical power, and they had the power grids all wired in and Wi-Fi'd in as far back as the 15, 16, 1700s, it would seem. And the evidence is simply getting overwhelming. See it down here, the power grid? See the old churches, the old world it was called? I mean, look at these buildings with all their towers on them. I mean, why would they have all these steeples going up here if they weren't using for Wi-Fi? And again, horse and buggy days, cobblestone streets, super clean. That's the other thing I noticed. All these pictures, all the streets are super clean. But again, they have these electromagnetic devices, electricity devices. Could this be the Jacquemin Boas Freemasonry symbolism as well, showing us? And look at all the towers that were built back in the 16, 17, 1800s compared to the penis, the phallic symbol of the Washington Monument, which is 6,666 inches tall. So these were Wi-Fi devices. They had old school communication devices, and they just released it. Look at this. This is Manhattan Beach. They had a tower in the water. They were harnessing the water's electricity, connecting it then. This is, I don't know the date of this, but look at the suits. So this had to be in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And here you have a sailing ship that's all lit up with electricity. They were able to harness the energy from the earth, from the water, and from the skies. So you see them? These were on the old ancient coins, Tartarian coins as well. And you can see they use these sprites, these sprockets all over for their power. And these are actual pictures of just recently in the sky. Nobody knew what they were, but now we know what they are. They're sprites. They're energy devices because they're still using them today. Coincidence? I don't think so. Look at this. New York 1905 main tower. Communication devices. Look at all the towers around here, folks. Look at how small the people are compared to how these towers. Horse and buggy days they built these. Streetcars were everywhere. What did they run the streetcars on? And again, we see more and more evidence that the Wi-Fi communication devices were everywhere. So there's no doubt. See them generating electricity here along the bottom here to show how it works? And these incredible, incredible statues. How did they build them? Anyway, let's get into a little further. And these elegant, massive fireplaces that were supposedly allegedly to heat the massive buildings that were built, but now we're getting new information that the fireplaces were energy modulating devices. Further inspection reveals they're very shallow, and instead of brick, the back of the chamber is lined with a big metal plate, no doubt probably copper for conducting, typically adorned with intricate art. Also the andirons, which do not hold log grates like modern places, but seem to serve as regulators or transmitters, or I'd say capacitors. Now, in the 19th century house with these huge, massive rooms and harsh winters, an ordinary fireplace would not be able to do that. But as you see, all fireplaces shown have one in common, a metal plate, a metal goblet-looking object in various sizes. The bigger ones usually are put near the edges of the fireplace. The function of the metal plates is quite clear. They reflect infrared rays. The fireplace heats up. The goblets, on the other hand, have nothing to do with the fireplace that heats up from combustion. The intensity of the electrical current in the center of the metal plate was probably so high that it made the plate incandescent and radiate heat. It's possible there are some other secrets, yes, like the Egyptians using their lodestones and using travertine and using limestones. They conducted energy through the stones as well. They knew the properties of how it worked. Take a look at these fireplaces. I mean, for one thing, these are incredible works of art with the marble and everything. How about the craftsmanship? How did they cut the marble? How did they put them in here? Here's the andirons that did nothing but hold logs in the shallow fireplace as well. And we see that over and over again in these incredibly large buildings. But then in the andirons, and you see the incredible elaborate designs. I mean, who did this? What kind of craftsmen did they have in those days? In the horse and buggy days? Are you kidding me? And here they're showing you a little psyops here. Oh, this is going to heat the whole house, this fireplace. Yeah, right. That's what they're selling us. But here we see the metal plates that are closed off in the box in here. So these were energy creation devices that they had way back when that were used as conductive materials to heat the entire house very efficiently. Radiant heat, no doubt. And you can see these andirons all over the place and the incredible elaborate designs of these buildings. So here's the structure of how this works in the electricity. Some of you guys can get into it and look into it further. And then I want to show you another piece of device where these incredible organs. I mean, look at the size of this man. This was the 1915 San Francisco exhibition. Look at the size of these organ pipes they had. And how elaborate these designs were. These were in a bunch of the cathedrals, and as I said, they put them in the 1915 San Francisco exhibition after the 1906 earthquake. I mean, look at these pipes, folks. Why did they have such elaborate designs, and why don't we have them today? And as we learn from these images, I mean, look at that. Isn't that incredible? And this is inside the cathedrals. The Biltmore Estate in Manhattan, built supposedly between 1889 and 1895 with these elaborate, incredible organs that were installed. This is, again, the 1915 Opus 500. Opus means great work. There were 7,500 pipes. We're talking about this one right here. 7,500 pipes and countless other parts sit silent and in pieces, packed in boxes and crates, spread across 3,600 square feet of concrete and basement, stacked 12 feet high. And that's in San Francisco as well. But the design of these things was just incredible. So, but what we learned from these is these were healing devices. They were tuned to the music that healed us. And so that's why the churches had magnetrons as well. Before the Tartarian Empire, I mean, when the Tartarian Empire was there, they were healing centers. People would go in there to get healed. And they would use the music, the resonance, the magnetrons, all of the energy of the stones that used in the buildings were healing centers. And then the Romanovs came in, took it over, and took over the churches and everything, and said, oh, it was God working through them. No, this is technology, ancient technology that we're really learning, spiritual technology. Look at these things, man. It wasn't just about the sound. Couldn't have been. And then look at this in the background, these magnetrons up here. So another bit of alternative revisionist history I want to get into is the cathedrals, allegedly built in the Gothic and Romans, and the stained glass. Notice the circular pattern. Notice the 12 inside circles that are in many of these cathedrals we see all over the world, including Asia, France, Europe, Britain, even the Washington National Building in the United States as well, has the same exact kind of a design, where there's 12 sprocket types in the inner circle of these stained glasses, generally facing west where the sun's going to come in. And here's Notre Dame Chartres, which allegedly caught fire, and they pulled the statues off. And you can see that same exact design in most of the buildings, many of the buildings we see still standing today. But are these conductive motors? And here you have a design with these sprockets, and these sprockets have 12 slots into them using magnets, using positive and negative charges, magnetism, to charge them. So were these stained glass somehow lined with copper? Were they lined with organite? Were they energy-creating devices where the light would come in? It's been converted to energy, just like Tesla was doing, positive, negative charges in the stained glass, or maybe the wiring that went around to hold the stained glass in the frames. Who knows? But definitely we know that we have energy materials of Earth that create energy when we put them together. Magnetized energy, electromagnetism, and electricity. And again, getting back to these fires, was this a directed energy weapon used? Was the Tartarian Empire there all the way down to San Francisco, way back as late as the 1800s? The Tartarian Empire was vast. It went all the way from China to Siberia, Russia, all the way to North America. And we're only discovering the hidden stories, the mud floods of what was buried. And we're trying to find out how it was. But definitely we are now learning. I mean, this is like the Brandenburg Gate in East Germany and Russia. It all looks the same. This is the 1915 exposition that the next year they took it down. They took it all down. They destroyed it. I think this was the end of the Tartarian Empire, and they were celebrating by destroying these structures. Here they destroy this one in this post office in Detroit, made a freeway, not a post office. But look at these buildings, folks. Look at the size of these buildings, and they destroyed them all. They took them all down. Why wouldn't they keep them? I mean, talk about building codes and safety standards and all that. This is the horse and buggy days. How did they build them? We just have massive evidence that in the 1850s to the 1920s, the Tartarians were here, and the Euro-Asians, the Romanovs, came down and swept them away, most likely with directed energy weapons. With energies from the gods they had acquired from the Tartarians, who were using them for peaceful purposes to heal. And now the new narrative is the Romanovs got a hold of the technology and took it over and eliminated the Tartarians, eliminated this incredible culture of good and plenty where everybody lived in abundance, and one of their only laws was that you gave back to nature what you took away. And the Tartarians were also larger than life we know today. You talk about the giants that used to exist. They did. We have massive evidence now that there were giants back there. Not all Tartarians were giants because they incorporated, like I said, a large swath of the whole world. But definitely we found bones all over the world that show that there were, including the United States, giants in North America. I mean, the evidence is overwhelming. I mean, look at this. Here's a map of all the giants found throughout the United States. And notice the Great Divide, the Mississippi River. Could have the United States been in half until the water and the floods came about? And then we have, again, much evidence. And also we have the stories of David and Goliath and slaying the mighty big guys. Is this the story of the Roman Catholic Church slaying the Tartarian Empire and celebrating it in their allegories of David and Goliath? It could very well be. And again, folks, we're just piecing it together. No one has all the answers yet. But we're finding out that there may have been, before the mud floods, there were giants that were here that were encased into the earth. Massive sizes. And also that they were encrusted literally into the earth, somewhat frozen, the whole comet theory, but on a much grander scale where there was some type of event that could have caused all of these rocks and just looking like massive humans and animals from an ancient time. It's all coming together in the tree stumps, huge, massive tree stumps that are now rocks. But here again, the question was 1906 equal 2017-18, where we're seeing directed energy weapons being used. There's so much evidence that this is true. Was this what they used to take down the Tartarian Empire? It's very possible because there's very few traces of how they did the technology, but this might be one clue. And I just included this picture because I thought it was real cool of a lightning strike over a time-lapse photography showing the connection to Earth electromagnetism. All right, plain truth out, peace, love one another, always.